All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about something huge, how India's national security threats are completely transforming. You know that classic image of soldiers out in the jungle or on a remote border? Well, that's only half the story now. A whole new battle is being fought, and it's happening in the digital world, in the metaverse. So let's get into it. And this really brings us to the core question we're tackling here. What even is a nation's frontline anymore? Because as we're about to see, the fight isn't just for physical ground. No, it's for something much slipperier. It's a battle for ideas, for influence, and honestly, for your perception of what's real. Okay, so before we dive headfirst into these new digital battlefields, we've got to get our bearings. We need to understand the traditional threats first, right? So let's quickly break down the classic challenges that have been shaping India's security for, well, for decades. First up, you have terrorism. And look, its most powerful weapon isn't necessarily the bomb or the bullet. It's fear. The whole point, the core objective, is psychological. It's about scaring an entire population to push a political or ideological agenda. Then there's insurgency. And this is different. It's really important to get the distinction. This is an organized, armed challenge against the state itself, against its authority and its control over land. Insurgents aren't just trying to create fear. They usually have a very clear political goal, like breaking away or gaining autonomy.
And a really specific type of insurgency you see in India is left-wing extremism, or LWE, as it's often called. Their goal is pretty straightforward, ideologically speaking. They want to completely overthrow the government using armed force and take over the state.
So let's just nail this down, because it's the key difference. Terrorism, its goal is fear, and civilians are often the targets. Insurgency, its goal is political control, and the state itself is usually the target. See the difference? It's a totally fundamental split in both their strategy and their ultimate objective. All right, so with those definitions in our back pocket, let's look at a real-world example. How does a classic territory-based threat actually play out? We're going to dive into a case study on the fight against left-wing extremism, which has been going on for decades. Just look at this number for a second, 86%. So what is that? Well, that's the absolutely staggering drop in deaths from LWE violence between 2010, when it was at its peak, and 2023. I mean, that is a massive, massive success story when it comes to containing a physical, on-the-ground insurgency. And this here breaks down that success even further. You're seeing a 73% drop in violent incidents overall, and that huge 86% drop in deaths we just mentioned. But it's not just about the numbers. The threat has also been geographically squeezed, basically. The state has managed to take back control of areas where, frankly, its authority was pretty weak for a long time. So the big question is, how did this happen? Was it just a military thing? Not at all. It was this really smart, multi-pronged strategy. The national policy from 2015 wasn't just about security. It was a combination of force, yes, but also development. Building roads, schools, getting cell service into these areas. It was about improving governance and, crucially, managing public perception. The strategy wasn't just fight the insurgents. It was win over the people. But here's the twist in the story. Just as India is getting a handle on this battle for physical territory, a completely new kind of fight is escalating, and fast. And this one is way less tangible. So, welcome to the new digital battlefield. This quote here from some security analysts just hits the nail on the head. It says the operational center of gravity has shifted. What does that mean? It means for these groups, it's not just about holding a piece of land anymore. The real prize is dominating the cognitive domain. That's a fancy way of saying the battle for hearts and minds, a battle that is now being fought almost entirely online. And the tools they're using on this new battlefield? They are incredibly sophisticated. We're talking about groups using artificial intelligence to create propaganda that is super convincing. Take a look at this example. The online magazine Saut Al Hind. It pumps out extremist content in a bunch of different regional languages, all designed to maximize its reach and get inside people's heads. And at the same time, how they coordinate and recruit new members has also gone digital and dark. It's all happening on encrypted apps, platforms like Telegram and Signal. They offer end-to-end encryption, which is great for privacy, but it also means it's a huge headache for security agencies. It makes it extremely difficult to track radicalization or see what they're planning. And it's not just propaganda and recruitment. Even their money has gone digital. Terror groups are now getting really clever with crowdfunding platforms.
They'll often set up a fundraiser disguised as some humanitarian cause, then blast it all over social media to get it to go viral. And just like that, they're reaching this huge global pool of potential donors who have no idea where their money is really going. And that brings us to the real cutting edge of terror financing, virtual assets. Yep, we're talking about cryptocurrencies. It's become a preferred way to move money around because they can use services called mixers that basically scramble the trail. It's like a digital money laundering machine, and it makes the funds incredibly, incredibly difficult to trace. Okay, so we have these traditional physical threats on one side, and these new digital ones on the other. But what's really happening is that the lines between them are getting super blurry. And this is where we see the rise of the crime-terror nexus. It's this dangerous hybrid threat where organized crime basically becomes the bank for terrorism and insurgency. And as you can see here, these networks are all tangled up together. It's wild. You've got drug trafficking from places like the Golden Crescent, and the profits from that get laundered to fund terror attacks. You've got fake currency being pumped in to mess with the economy. And the same routes used to smuggle arms are supplying insurgents with weapons. It's all one big, interconnected, transnational criminal ecosystem. You want a perfect case study? Look no further than the India-Myanmar border. That single stretch of land acts like a shared superhighway for both crime and terror. It's the place where insurgent groups go to get their weapons. It's where drugs and fake cash flow back and forth. And illegal migration through the area can be used as a cover for jihadist fighters to just slip right across the border. It's a logistical nightmare. So after all of that, what does it actually mean for the future of security? Well, it means the game has totally, fundamentally changed. And if the game has changed, the playbook has to change right along with it. This chart right here really sums up the whole story we've been telling. In the past, the focus was overwhelmingly on physical security, boots on the ground holding territory. But the future? That demands a massive pivot. We're talking a huge shift toward financial intelligence. You gotta follow the money, and building what's called societal resilience, which is our defense against this new war of ideas. So what does that look like in practice? The future focus areas are pretty clear. First, you need deep expertise in financial intelligence to have any hope of tracking those virtual assets. Second, you gotta use strategic tech, like drones, to watch over those porous borders. And third, and this might be the most critical piece of the puzzle, is building that societal resilience. How? Through things like media literacy, teaching people how to spot the disinformation that fuels all this conflict in the first place. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. In this new era of digital warfare, this cognitive battle where the front line is literally everywhere, what is a nation's strongest shield? Is it still its military, or is it something else? Is it a population of citizens who are well-informed, resilient, and can't be easily divided? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.